with the digital technologies. We will have with us, and I will ask them to take the floor, Mr. Dimosthenis Anagnostopoulos, Mr. Nikos Christodoulou, Mrs. Viktoria Kalfaki, Mr. Nikos Maniatis, and Mr. Panagiotis Karkatsoulis. Mr. Yannis Rizopoulos, journalist, is the moderator. I don't need to repeat that. Please respect the time as much as you can. Thank you. Welcome. Welcome, and thank you for being with us. This is a round table, which is not a round table. It is a long table. Public sector transformation in digital technologies. Subtitle, Reform Challenges and Growth Opportunities. So, the efforts, the challenges, and the opportunities. I don't think there is no more time. We have 25 minutes. We are 5 people. We need to speak. So, challenges for reform and growth opportunities. Secretary General, you have seen everything. You have been for many years. When you say 5 minutes, you mean just 5 minutes? I'm very happy to be here. The AmCham, the American Hellenic Chamber, is the ideal place to speak about the challenges of the future. So, Mr. President, thank you for the invitation and for your presence. Very succinctly, let me say that the challenge for Greece in the coming years, as regards the digital era, has to do with the possibility not just to follow best practices, but also to create such practices for the future. And we're talking about a full ecosystem, but the bet is to create and to export best practices at the level of the impressions and technological research and applications for digital governance, but also from the viewpoint of development. Even economic diplomacy could support that. To become more specific, in the previous years, we had the opportunity to be distinguished, to have distinctions regarding our capacity to reform the public sector. Through the interoperability, all citizens can receive the services with the automatic transfer of data, and the only thing that is required is to give their consent. Whether they will pay through the wallet is important, but the most important thing is that the citizens do not have to submit documents. And a central point of interoperability is the General Secretariat of Systems. And this is why Greece was awarded the first prize 2 years ago. But this year we received another prize for the wallet, which gives the opportunity to the citizen to move around the country without having to submit various documents, driving license, and ID. The citizens can go and have a bank transaction and be served without having to submit anything else. Why is this important? It is important for 2 reasons. First of all, for the interoperability, where we have given examples to many countries that ask us, how do you manage to do that? And we provided answers that are not just technical. It's not a technical problem. It is institutional, how we have built a small edifice where the Ministry of Digital Governance can share the data of public administration for a specific purpose, to serve the citizens. So we have a transfer of data for the citizen from agency A to B, and we're talking about a concrete set of data. So according to GDPR compliance, without submitting the citizens to various steps. And we have taken all the steps to have a center that serves the whole country. So 1.45 million transactions last year. Most of them are transfer of documents and mainly data, not documents, within the country to serve the citizen with their own consent. Second, the wallet. The wallet is very important for an additional reason. It is a precursor of the European wallet, which in 2 years will provide the opportunity to everyone to move around Europe without having to submit, to carry around anything else than a digital tool. And not just to move around Europe, but also to have access, that is to log in and ask for public services when we submit our tax return, or to rent a bike all over Europe with the same way, the wallet. The Greek wallet is the precursor of the European wallet. And if you doubt what I'm saying, let me tell you that the main example that shows that our country was a pioneer is the fact that 3 years ago we had the presentation of the European vaccination certificate. It was presented by the Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis and the Vice President of the European Commission, and that was the first example of cross-border interoperability. That is, interoperability beyond the borders, and this is recognized everywhere. And this is the most blatant example, and this was done here in this country, having cleared the registers of the public sector in order to abolish the problems of the past. So Greece was also a pioneer in other things. It was a pioneer in the creation of an ecosystem around the cloud. And I'm very happy that we have also interlocutors in this panel on this. I know their job and I know what they have done. So Greece, being a pioneer there, has given us the opportunity to do away with every service, either it is a municipality, a region, or whatever, and having recourse to any of the other services, 2,700 services. We can have access to the cloud, and we can be multi-cloud. We have services. We have contracts with Microsoft, with Google, and we can become multi-cloud. And this is very good. Finally, AI. Greece has to invest in specific sectors of AI. It is not just compliance and AI Act. I am the representative of the country on the AI board. This is something that has to do with targeting. The applications are very important. If we invest in these applications that have to do with transparency, because in our country we have built finally a system as regards the source of income, which might seem something trivial, but I can tell you that now it pre-fills data from bank deposits, mutual funds, shares, investments, bank documents, in order to have the submission and to have a very high degree of transparency. And this means 300,000 people who have to submit these documents. Imagine that this is done for the whole population who will submit the source of income document this year. We have spent a lot of time, a lot of sleepless nights, but our country now is really a pioneer in these transparency indicators from now on. Thank you very much. Nikos Christodoulou. It has been 20 years when we were talking about the information society. What has been done since then? Thanks for the invitation, first of all. The answer is that a lot of things have been done since then. And to tell you the truth, a lot of things have been done, and we need to acknowledge this. We need to recognize, admit that to the Secretary General. A lot of things have been done during the last 5 years. COVID helped, some people say, but I have to say that the digital paper was written before the pandemic. What the pandemic helped to is the acceleration of implementing these things, which means that when we have the will, we can achieve a lot. So leaps forward have taken place. So what the Secretary General is saying is true. But let me take a step backwards and see beyond what was done, what remains to be done. So I took a look. We have a Global Institute for Government policy, and I saw the credits for 2024, and I saw an interesting thing, that the trust of citizens to governments globally is in historical lows, and we all talk about bureaucracy, slow pace, etc. What we have been listening here. The paradox is that if we take examples from governments, various governments, we see exactly the opposite in reality. And there is a coefficient which is called 10x, which means that based on digital transformation, I can do things 10 times faster or more efficiently than they were done in the past. And this not only on the local scale, but on a global scale. For instance, in India, when we have the big time identity, which gave the opportunity to India, which has the largest population on earth, 80% of the people there can have a digital identity and a bank account in 5 years, when in the past they needed 50 years to do so. So digital transformation changes the landscape of governance in a country. Yet, let me say the following. Digital transformation is not an end in itself for the government. The surveys show that there is direct correlation between the digital transformation of a country and the development, the course of its economy. If we want tomorrow the economy to do better here in Greece, it is a one-way road to follow the digital transformation path. And if the impression is given that we are moving slowly, this is due to the fact that there are very many issues to be resolved, and these have to be resolved using the rationale of once only. Once only you need the information in the government. You don't need it more times. Then you disseminate it everywhere. And this is the example of the source of income. Yes, when all this started, Karkatsoulis was saying it is the data that are moving, not the people. So they still have things to do. Final question. Mrs. Kalfaki, who have come from the cold, from Switzerland, you have seen everything, right? Thank you for the invitation. I have heard interesting things said by the previous speakers, and I want to add to what was said, because everything is very important. Mr. Anagnostopoulos said quite rightly, talked about the challenges and opportunities of multi-cloud. Multi-cloud is a challenge and an opportunity. Why it is both? Because the architecture that needs to be built in order to build a cloud has to help him to be moved to somewhere else. So our architecture is not the vendor lock-in, but it will allow us to innovate and to take the best from the provider that provides the best product. So we are building with this principle of being transferred. Data security, very important for the citizens in order for them to trust the public sector and the companies which manage and handle their data, as we heard. But in order to have safe data, we need all the systems to be secure. Zero trust methods means that the systems have to be safe from beginning to end, from the network, the application itself, and at all levels. This is very important. In order to build day by day and month by month this trust, that is, the citizens have to build this trust as to how their data is managed. And thus, we will be allowed as a country, because we are all looking into how we can help the public sector and companies to move forward. The other thing that was mentioned, AI and data management, is also a major challenge and a major opportunity for the public sector and broadly for the country. The first principle, and we shouldn't forget it, is how the system's architecture is in order for us to be allowed to use these systems. We need to trust colleagues who have done it before, who have this experience, and who can advise us as to how to do it. Maybe it sounds obsolete now that we talk about Gen AI to go back to how it was done, but it is indeed important to be able to enhance this data. Their architecture must allow this. And I want to add something else on AI. Our country has done a lot of steps and is a pioneer, and I expect in the coming months and coming years to go deeper into AI and the applications that are being developed thereof, applications that will help the daily life of the citizens in traffic. You mean the AI agents? Not just agents. It's not agents, because the agent is just one part of AI. With Principal AI, we can have an application that can manage traffic on the streets, or it can manage a car collision. We can have visibility as to what is happening, how we can improve the health sector. With AI, we can have faster prognosis, etc., etc. So I see in the coming months and the coming years this AI entering deeper in all the public sector fields, not just serving the citizens as regards the management of their data, but in other, in previous stages and in other fields, in other sectors that are really necessary.
Mr. Maniatis, what's going on? Is that the same? Now, what is the constant is constant change. So we need to see how changes will happen faster and correct, when we'll have balance between the speed and quality. And what it means, because we're talking about security and we're talking about sensitive data, so we need to make all these changes in a secure way. It also means in a way that will not create new silos, but we will have a future upgrade of the systems and interoperability, like the Interoperability Center that is developed by the General Secretariat, not to create new silos as we did in the past, for the systems to be open and interconnected. And the same goes for AI. Artificial intelligence has a future and it's open. So the systems we will build around artificial intelligence need to be based on models that provide the capability for the public sectors and the private ones alike to trust their data there in order to have added value and not to do reheat the same meal, as it were, to lose the competitive edge for our companies in our country. So the more reliable the models we will use are, the faster this trust challenge vis-à-vis AI will be lifted. Now, the AI factories that quite successfully will be implemented by the minister's team that filed this proposal is based on these principles. So this is a tremendous opportunity for the country to innovate and create a big team, a big ecosystem of innovation around this sector. Ecosystem revolving around AI as its core, nucleus. Another challenge I consider important is the organizational change. Digital transformation is not just technological transformation. It is also a challenge in changing our processes. And even more in the public sector, where it is more difficult and demanding to change this MO. I mean, the same thing that private companies do alongside technology, they change the procedure using consultancy agencies and companies that are aiming at that, to look at how we can modify our processes to make technology match, because technology per se is not the solution. It needs skills. We need to invest in our people, to build their skills, to upskill, to create and be able to have these new skills. This is in terms of challenges. As to the opportunities, I'm exceptionally optimistic. Technology always brings better quality of life, and I believe that it will be rampantly improved. We already talked about examples such as speed in citizen service, with the asset declaration. There is no bigger asset than technology. In terms of taxation, we already have examples. the tax basis the taxable assets are widened, the tax basis is enlarged, in the cadastre. All these things that map and chart the country, there are examples in which trust will be consolidated, as will justice. The democratization we were talking about? Yes, indeed. Now, in terms of AI, I equally believe that with new technology, new jobs will be created, because with all these models, young people may find a new vision to become entrepreneurs. These modern technologies are knowledge intensive. From the paradigm that we had that all people in the country wanted to become doctors or lawyers, we will use AI and create new jobs, and we will have to invest, we'll have to let the machines do the mundane and monotonous tasks. We can focus on our systems. What, the repetitive tasks? Yes, exactly those. And to feel better, we will definitely live longer, and we might get to work a little less. Now, you've been struggling with that monster called red tape, bureaucracy. Mr. Karkatsoulis, what do you think? Has the situation improved? Can we be optimistic? I'll ask a question at the end about the next day, okay? So start thinking. Next year, maybe. Well, we do need to be optimistic. This is not only due to the rampant development of technology, which my fellow interlocutors know better than I do, but it's due to the fact that there are processes and procedures that allow us to be optimistic. Our widest integration in the European space, to put it mildly, helps us be able to see more examples, to learn from our peers and adopt them much faster. The flow of information is rapid. So what we used to design or discuss about 20 years ago, I remember Nikos Christodoulou, for instance, were antiquated situations. I mean, we're talking about the second CSF, which is why I reminded him of the Information Society and the Observatory. Yes, we will need to connect the information superhighways, remember? And we have buses running in those highways. I mean, obviously we have these positive traits, and many of those have gone up to a level of everyday life, as was mentioned by my previous interlocutors, and particularly the SG, who's been monitoring these things. We see these things and we experience them. Now, the downside is that the problems that emerge are much more raw and wild than what we're used to. This is a very volatile environment, a very difficult one. Suffice it to mention climate change and the risks and disasters that are linked with it. So if someone were to tell me that we didn't build the regional programs of civil protection because each municipality, each region needs to come up with a plan on the basis of the vulnerabilities they have, their frailties, to reduce the risk, to mitigate the risk. We realize that this has arisen as a problem, and it's running faster than our efforts to control it. Because if one would take a look at the past 5 years, one will see that there are efforts being made. We have a budget for civil protection alone in the excess of 2 billion euros. But the problem still persists, and we keep experiencing it. And this is something that is seen by the others, the citizens, us, everyone. They sees it in a negative light. Second thing is that coordination, from the point that it was considered something very sophisticated, now it's on the field. Well, you may coordinate the center, the field, the private sector and the volunteers all together, or you're gone. The sheer pressure by the problems and the facts is such that we need to run. So we're on the edge now? Yes, indeed. That's quite right. True. But this is not something we have managed to succeed in. If you see the efforts on the multi-level governance, we're still a long way away, but because we're still tormented by old, unsolved problems, the biggest of which is probably one that may sound as a paradox to a third party, which is the overlapping of competences. This is due to the fact that the state was built in a way that competences are fragmented and most usually overlap. Well, now we have AI. We have all these measures, the means, and these, obviously, but these are tools that can help. However, we're still doing a debate on them, so we need to run faster. And the last thing I want to say, which is inextricably linked to the previous ones, has to do with the simplification of procedures. We hear a lot of good things about the simplification of procedures, and this is something that is in fact happening. That being said, when one has a sense of the width and the breadth of the field, we're talking about 4,000 administrative processes that are registered as of now, that are problematic. What do you file? What do you depict? What do you write down? How? Etc. But you see that there is a field there that looks like the beast, the monster, the hydra, that you chop off one head and two emerge. Okay, it's not always in the same direction with the executor of an administrative process. The people who are into the simplification of the processes may, in fact, simplify, but on the other hand, you have a generator of processes. Those who generate also have their own rules. For instance, proper legislation, measuring legal impact on issues that we're trying to legislate on. This does not always happen, you see, and many times it is overridden. So, in a nutshell, all the problems that still persist, I didn't talk about the human capital and merits its own session, but if I had to say one thing, that would be training, education. This is the most pressing thing in terms of the human capital. All the rest, its mobilities, remuneration, wages and stuff is very serious, but much more serious is the issue of their education. So, education cubed to the third power. Right, we have a few seconds, but we will borrow a couple of minutes from the next session. So, in 2 years what? I'm not talking about 3, 5 or 10 years. Where will we be in 2 years' time? Mr. Karkatsoulis. Well, I believe that in 2 years' time from now, we will have managed to build at the level of region and coordination better mechanisms to articulate public policies, which I consider of great importance. This is what I would call is the major issue. Now, whatever happens in terms of developing human capital, tapping onto the tremendous potential, we're talking about more than 16,000 PhDs, masters, it's a shame for this population to be sitting on their hands. Well, I believe that we need to build the substrate, the infrastructure, the platforms, the registers, the data, to be able to truly innovate using the new technologies. And to make this happen, we'll need to change our culture and become more collaborative amongst ourselves, especially since Greece has a lot of SMEs. So if there's scale, and in order to have scale, you need to have collaborations, we will not be able to innovate. A small company cannot innovate with 2 people and 3 applications. We need to go bigger. Mrs. Kalfaki. So we give the hands of brilliant minds, professors and students and the research center in these platforms like Google Cloud to create innovation. And this will solve a lot of problems. Now, we will have a lot more things. We will try to have convergence with the European Union. We're still not there. We're still on a course to convergence. If we could do after all these years to leapfrog, this is a tremendous opportunity. The fact that we're behind gives us the possibility to see in front. I wish we can make it. This is a very good thing, and I want to see it happen. Mr. SG, the next 2 years, well, 2 things. I want to see the country continue to produce best practices and to introduce in our country the culture that will spill over the private sector. Many companies joined the cloud because they saw what the state does, and they followed the example of the state. So I think the same might happen with AI. The torch may be passed down to the private sector. And the most important thing is for the projects that have started to be able to be completed, okay, at a proper quality with the vendors, in collaboration with the public sector, so as to serve the purpose for which they were built. And the second is to do it in a way that will really help the country make this leap forward that Mr. Christodoulou mentioned, Mrs. Kalfaki, Mr. Maniatis, to all do our job well in order to go forward, each in their field in which we're specialists. Now, the fact that we have specialists in different sectors with specific successes is a very important thing. And they want to see what they did in the past be a sector where we will be successful in the future as well. In the public sector, you've done great things. We believe in the simplification, and we wish you can do more. So we're talking about a better future. Okay, be well, stay well.